Just give everybody a little bit of an update today and have some fun because Fiji really is all about fun, right? It's definitely not a serious destination. So without further ado, oops, let me figure out, we were, sorry, there we go. There I am. If anybody hasn't met me, that's unfortunately not my staff in Los Angeles. Those are actually the boys up at Gameo Resort, but you know, that Fijian hospitality that just makes me want to get back to the islands really quickly. So just so you know, I've actually been with Tourism Fiji. I've been regional director looking after North America for 7 years now. And so yeah, I just wanted today, Ren gave me this wonderful opportunity to talk about Fiji. I've been traveling there since 1990 was my first visit as a very young girl. And it's a place that not only, you know, employs me, but it's really, really close to my heart. So I'm wanting, again, we're going to get an update, and then I want to have some fun talking about Fiji and what makes it such a great destination and what makes you have such a great experience. So first of all, I know, may I say to you all, first of all, I hope you are well. I hope your families are well. I hope that you are seeing an increase in business, whatever that is. Domestic travel is great, but we are certainly seeing that the light at the end of the tunnel is now much, much closer than the light behind us, and we're really excited. So first of all, the great news is that Fiji will be celebrating 1 year of being completely COVID-free this weekend. So we shut down our borders really early, and we're able to keep the country, the islands, COVID-free. There were a few cases that came in on repatriation flights. They were caught in the quarantine hotels, so there's no community transmission. So we're absolutely safe. We have been able to secure the funding for enough vaccines to vaccinate all Fijians, and about 20% of the vaccines that were coming through the World Health Organization have already arrived in the country, and the frontliners at the airport and in Nandi and those dealing with the flights that are coming in, visitors coming in are getting vaccinated first. The good news is we actually have the money to vaccinate every Fijian. A coalition of private companies, including Fiji Water and the producers of Survivor, pulled together enough money to buy the remaining vaccines for the outstanding 900,000 Fijians. Our problem is just in securing the vaccines on the world market today. So, you know, God willing, we will get everybody vaccinated, and that's going to be a really key element in reopening our borders. So I know the big question is, Ruth, when are we going back? I wish I knew. And I don't have any official updates, but I do feel somewhat confident, but I'll deny ever having said this. Please don't record this bit, Ren, thank you. But I do hope that Americans will be allowed to travel back to Fiji, at least to a limited part of Fiji or parts of Fiji by the end of 2021. So I've told my family we're going for Thanksgiving. And again, that's nothing official. And there's a whole lot of moving parts that are all around that. But with the opening of the Trans-Tasman border, as Ren just talked about, you know, the Fijian government is really, really interested in getting our borders open as quickly as possible. And we are prepared. So during this time, we've put together a great program called the Care Fiji Commitment, and it is a world-class WHO recognized safety and hygiene plan that the vast majority of our resorts and tourism operators have already taken part in, so that we have COVID protocols in place from the moment guests arrive at the airport until they get to the hotel. Now, what are those protocols going to look like in, you know, 5 months when everybody's been vaccinated? I'm not exactly sure, but just rest assured that Fiji is on it. We've got a program. We're getting the resorts trained, and we're going to be ready when those borders open. And trust me, my team here in the US, we have been doing our own little guerrilla campaign to the Prime Minister and the Attorney General. It's called Let Us In, with the US capitalized for Let the US In. So we are here working on your behalf. So I did want to share with you all, there is one way to get into Fiji if you're very lucky. And that is if you can arrive via private jet or on a charter of the Fiji Airways aircraft, which is flying a cargo route. So we have a campaign. You're going to see more about it. You may have seen some of it already in the trade media, but there'll be a larger announcement next week. But it's called Luxury Vacations in Paradise, LVIP. So essentially what it is for guests who can arrive either by private jet, or again, you can charter the business class cabin of the FJ aircraft that's flying the cargo routes 3 times a week. And you have to go and stay at one of 8 approved resorts. So those are, you see them there, Lafala, Kokomo, Wakaya, Vomo, Turtle, Royal Davui, Yasawa, and Namotu. So those are the only resorts that are eligible to take place in this program. There's no minimum stay, but most resorts are looking for a 7-night minimum stay by the group. You do rent out the entire resort to yourself. And what happens is that the cost of your stay includes the 14-day quarantine for the resort staff after you leave. So look, it's not something that I can personally afford at the moment, but look, the FJ charter starts at about $250,000 for 25 people. And some of these resorts have some pretty, what I think, very reasonable offers for groups of 20, 25 people. So for under $500,000, $600,000, you might be able to get down there for a week. So again, not my my market at the moment, until that lottery ticket comes through for me. But if you do have ultra high worth clients, this is one way to get into Fiji right now. Just so you know, I mentioned cargo flights. Cargo flights are flying between Nandi and LA 3 times a week. So those planes are in the air if you drive past LAX and you see one. And I'm also really happy to report that we have been able to get the producers of Survivor back to Fiji. As you probably know, Survivor's been produced in Fiji out on Mana Island for the last 8 years. And they couldn't film last year, and so we've been able to get the Survivor producers back out there, and the cast and crew and everything. So that's just really great news. And again, it's just all about, we want to welcome visitors again, because that's what we do. So yeah, why is Fiji going to be so popular in a post-COVID world? I mean, it is. We've always been known for being remote and having those private and remote opportunities for guests. It's not difficult to find a private island when you've got 333. So yeah, I think, this is going to be a big draw. Remember, most of our resorts, a lot of our resorts are smaller than 30 rooms, some that are less than 20 rooms. So that idea of being someplace without a lot of people around you, we can do that. And I think that's what people are going to look for. But, more than that, and I'm trusting all of you, or most of you, have been to Fiji. And if you haven't, let me know and we'll get you there as soon as we can. But, it's our hospitality. It's not a put on hospitality. It's not something they go to corporate hospitality school to learn. This is genuine. It's in their hearts. It's in their souls. And there's nothing like, having a big Fijian bula and a big smile. And I spoke to a gentleman once, and he said he had just spent a week in Fiji and he felt it was like a 7-day hug. So, I think after all this craziness is over, I think everybody could use a 7-day hug. So anyway, couple reasons why, Fiji should be on your clients' radars for later this year, hopefully, and then next year for sure. So, again, Ren said, let's not make this a regular, just, how to sell Fiji type thing. And so what I thought is, I kind of want to tell you a little bit about the Fijian people. If you know this already, I apologize for boring you, but it kind of helps to understand why they're so darn hospitable today. So anyway, right now in Los Angeles at the LA County Museum of Art, LACMA, we have an amazing exhibit of Fijian art and artifacts called Art and Life in the Pacific. If any of you live in Los Angeles and you'd be interested in going up to LACMA and seeing the exhibit, let us know. We have some free tickets, but I think it's closing in May. So, toot sweet. But if you're interested in learning a little bit more about Fiji and its history and its art as well, because Fiji has some amazing, amazing artifacts, artwork, carvings. There is this podcast by Nancy, who is the curator for this exhibit. And I would highly recommend if you're interested in this. So just have a little listen there. If you go to lacma.org and search the Fiji, scroll down on the page and you'll find it. They also have an excellent soundtrack of Fijian music that I like to play in the background of whatever I'm doing, because that always makes me happy to listen to some Fijian music. So anyway, I do want to remind everybody that Fijians are Melanesians. We're not Polynesians. And Ren picked up on this in his introduction, because the Pacific is such a large place. And oftentimes people just kind of lump all the Pacific Islanders together. But as you can see there, Fiji is actually part of Melanesia. And Mela in Greek, meaning black. So the Fijians tend to be quite dark skinned, more than our Polynesian friends. So very interesting. Fijians are more closely related to the Vanuatuans and the Solomon Islanders and way over into Papua New Guinea. Fijians actually believe that their ancestors made their way from Africa originally and came across sort of the subcontinent and then down through Southeast Asia and eventually into the islands. If any of you have any African American clients who have been to Fiji, they will tell you that their experience is exceptional because the Fijians truly believe that they are directly related from the Africans. So really, really interesting. And this is one of the photographs that's part of the exhibit at LACMA. So again, if you can get there, great. If not, check it out online. The Fijians, of course, have wonderful legends to talk about their history. The origin of Fiji goes back to the highlands of Viti Levu, of the main island. And actually, when you fly into Nandi, when you look out from the airport, you see all those big mountains. Those are the highlands of Viti Levu, and that's the legendary birthplace of Fiji. And there's a whole legend around the snake that created the islands. But these highlands have actually become somewhat accessible to fit travelers through a really cool new product. You may not have heard of it, but it's called Talanoa Treks. And there are 3-day treks up into the Viti Levu highlands, and you actually stay overnight in authentic villages. So it's definitely for someone who's fit. I mean, I couldn't do it. But we are expecting a younger and more active crowd looking to come into Fiji post-COVID. So something to think about. But yeah, some wonderful legends to do with the whole history of the Fijian people. And this is the one that I love here, that this was featured in the Fiji Airways, in their in-flight magazine. But the Dakawanga, the shark god, the story of this, and I'll just tell it to you really quickly because I use it all the time when I'm in Fiji, and there's people who are afraid to go in the water because of the sharks. So the legend is that the shark god from Fiji got into this mortal combat with the octopus god, and the octopus god was winning and was about to strangle the shark. And the shark said, please, if you don't kill me and spare my life, I promise I will never harm the people of Fiji. And that's why to this day you can shark dive in Fiji in all confidence. That's why they call it a legend. Anyway, I just want to also remind you that Fijians have a reputation, or had a reputation, I should say, for being some of the fiercest warriors in the South Pacific. You can see one of our tribal leaders there. Fijians were cannibals. It's not something we normally talk about, but we do have a cannibal past. The idea is that if you were to consume the flesh of your enemy, that made you stronger. So it wasn't something that went on all the time, but it was part of the warrior tradition. This on the right side of the screen, this is one of my favorite contemporary warriors, Jope, who comes up and does trade shows with us sometimes. And he walked up behind this lovely little agent at a signature travel event. And I posted this picture on my personal Facebook, and I put, Tourism Fiji loves travel agents. We call them appetizers. Anyway, I was asked to take it down. But anyway, the other great warrior story and how fearsome the Fijians were is, you'll remember the story of the mutiny on the Bounty. If not, watch the Mel Gibson version of the movie. But when, Christian Fletcher and the mutineers, they set Captain Bligh adrift in a longboat, and Bligh and the other sailors had been at sea for weeks. And eventually they sailed, or they floated through the passage, the waterway between our two main islands, Viti Levu and Vanua Levu. And even though they were starving and desperate for water, the reputation of the Fijian warriors, who were so fearsome, they knew that. And so they used all their energy and paddled through those waters and bypassed Fiji as quickly as they could. That stretch of water actually is now called Bligh Waters, Bligh, for Captain Bligh from Mutiny on the Bounty. So, little trivia in case you get that question in Jeopardy some night. Okay. The thing about Fiji is that it has always been based on your village and your clan and your family. And to this day, the village is still the heart and the center of everything to do with Fiji and Fijians. There is very little sense of individuality. It's all about community. And that's why one of the reasons you don't tip in Fiji, because individual recognition is very uncomfortable for a Fijian. They would prefer to share that and reap the rewards with their village. It's an amazing sentiment that I think the whole world could learn a little bit more from. Okay, the British are coming. The British are coming. So in about 1840, the sailors came through. Some of them stayed for dinner, others didn't. But starting in the 1840s, more and more missionaries started to come into Fiji. In the 1850s, the Methodists got a really good foothold down in the south, and the Catholics were doing a little bit better up in Vanua Levu. And by 1870, the high chief in Fiji, Thokobau, he ceded the Fijian islands to the British. So at that point, we became a British colony. And it was during that time, during the early years of the British colonization, that the Fijian society changed forever in a really significant way. So the idea from the Brits was originally to come in and farm sugarcane on the islands of Fiji, because that's kind of what they were doing in the mid 1850s. But the Fijians, to be honest, they weren't really interested in getting up in the morning and farming sugarcane, because that sounded like a whole lot of work, and they could be out, surfing and doing coconuts and stuff. So the British thought about it, and they also sort of weighed that whole Fijian reputation for being, sometimes not so friendly to the enemies. So what they decided to do was to go, not to try to urbanize them, not to try to bring them together into plantation, but instead to bring in another set of workers. And so for about 25 years, between 1875 and 1900, a large number of Indians, mostly from southern India, were brought to Fiji by the British to work in the sugarcane fields. Most of them, 99%, never left. So today, Fiji is a multicultural society. About 60% of Fiji is of the traditional I2K Melanesian Fijians, and about 40% of the population are Indo-Fijians. And They speak a very different dialect of Hindi, and they really don't. They're fifth and sixth generations now, so they're while they love a good Bollywood movie, don't get me wrong, and you can find a fine curry anywhere in Fiji. The Indo-Fijians identify so much more as Fijians than as Indians, but the whole mixture of cultures and societies, the fact that you have churches, mosques, and temples all side by side in Fiji, is I think one of the things that makes it a much more interesting destination. So anyway, in 1970, we did get our independence from Great Britain. And so just October 10th of 2020, we had to quietly celebrate, but we were able to celebrate 50 years of independence. I'm happy to say that for the last 7 years, we have been a democracy, and our Prime Minister, Bainimarama, has been democratically elected twice in the past 7 years. So very proud of what we have accomplished as a little island nation. Yeah, I think we're doing really well. But today, what I want to really talk about, and I hope you guys found that interesting. Look, it's always good to throw in a little tidbit about stuff when you're talking to your clients anyway. Sound smart. That's what I always say. They'll believe anything if you can sound smart once. But we all know Fiji's known for their legendary hospitality. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that and like what clients experience and maybe a little bit about why. And we actually, Tourism Fiji, just before COVID hit, had come up, had recognized that really our people are what makes Fiji so special. So we came up with this great campaign called the Billionaires. So not a billionaire, but a Billionaire. So people who are rich in happiness. And there's a whole campaign, and I'm sorry, I wanted to play a video for you, but we had a little technical issues, as you do. But please, we'll send you some links in a follow-up, but a wonderful campaign that just really highlights the delightful playfulness that makes Fijians such wonderful hosts for guests. So you all know what it's about, just making people feel welcome and part of the family as soon as you arrive in the islands. So have a look at Billionaires. There's a website. There's also some fun YouTube videos that are a lot more fun than looking at a website. See Tom and see Melly and all the Billionaires and their little videos. So please have a look at that and share it with your clients too, because it's great stuff. But, just a reminder that, when you arrive in Fiji, we don't say welcome, we say welcome home. And, it's painted on the exterior of the hangar at Nandi Airport. It is very much guests or family. Actually, my ad agency called me and they said, what's the word in Fijian for guest, or what would they call you? And I said, well, you're family, because I remember, you're on a transfer bus and the driver turns around and says, and how are we today, family? So it's that sense that immediately you're family. Remember too that most resorts in Fiji employ villagers from a local village. So you're also going to have an opportunity with a village visit to, go and meet the sister of your bartender and the mother of your masseuse and all that. And you do become part of a family, and they'll never forget you. And this is one of the craziest things about Fijians. And if you've been there, especially multiple times, you know this, but Fijians have this innate sense of remembering who you are and all of this. And so this is Eddie from down at the Shangri-La. He used to work up at Namali, and I ran into Eddie at the Shangri-La, and he walked up to me and, oh, Bula, do you remember me from Namali? And I said, oh, Eddie, sure. Yeah, of course. And I'd been there. 8 years previously before I worked for Tourism Fiji, I was on a personal vacation. And anyway, Eddie said to me, I know you, Miss Ruth, because your friend Elaine, she held the hand of the other snorkeling guide during our trip, and you fed the fishies on the boat coming back from the dive trip. This man remembered I got sick on the boat. Anyway, they will remember you forever, remember your name. They call you by name throughout your stay. And I've never found any place on earth that's like that. Eddie just actually retired this year. I was very, very sad. There is another saying in Fiji that a child's feet never touch the ground. and Fijians absolutely adore children. And for decades, Fiji has hosted Australian and New Zealand families and just created bonds that are just unbelievable. We haven't really, I don't want to say touched on it, but we're really going to be promoting more family travel out of the U.S. After COVID. I think it's just changing. It's not, kids aren't so, it's not a big deal to put a kid on a 10-hour flight anymore. And there are so many wonderful places for multi-generational stays in Fiji. But it's not just about, putting them into some kids club with video games. Kids become little, marine ambassadors and budding ecologists and learn about culture and make new friends. And the last time I was up at the Jean-Michel Cousteau Resort, there was this family leaving, and the little boy didn't want to leave. He had his his arms around the legs of his Bula buddy, and he was sobbing and he didn't want to go. And then they put him in the van, and it was pulling away, and he has a little face pressed to the back window, crying, waving goodbye to his Bula buddy. So again, wonderful, wonderful experiences for children. And it's great for families too, because if you got a crying baby in a restaurant in Fiji, the bartender's coming from behind the bar to take the baby and start playing with them. Anyway, I could go on forever. Wonderful places. The other thing about Fiji is that music is ubiquitous. Everywhere you go, people are singing and dancing and loving it. And, I even know when the maids are cleaning the rooms, you can hear them sort of singing back and forth to each other. I wanted to play a video here too, but one of the best examples of Fijian singing, or I want to say the examples that makes me cry. If you Google like the Fiji Rugby Sevens team, so these big 6'5" rugby players sing wherever they go. And recently they were in Sydney and they quarantined at a hotel in Sydney. And when their quarantine finished, they all gathered on their balconies and sang the most beautiful music to all of the workers below who had taken care of them. So again, it's all about music and just singing along and a little dancing here and there too. I'm dying to dance. This is something I haven't done during COVID. Not a lot of dancing going on in my life. Anyway, this is one of my favorite expressions. So we've kind of come to realize that when a Fijian says hopefully, what they're really saying is God willing. And I really have come to kind of think that Fijians think very much like Buddhists, because yesterday is over, nothing you can do about it. Why worry about it? And tomorrow is in God's hands, and whatever God wants to happen will happen. So basically, be present, enjoy the day, and enjoy your life. And it's an amazing concept. And one funny story, my old assistant, Vani, I was freaking out because I couldn't get some hand lotion through customs, some Fijian hand lotion through customs for a travel agent show. And I was just, And Vani said, Miss Ruth, don't worry. If God wants those travel agents to have soft hands, the lotions will get through. And I realized I had much bigger fish to fry. So unfortunately, we never got the lotions through, but I was able to share that story to all the agents about why they didn't get their lotions. But an amazing philosophy for life, and something probably we could all think about a little bit more right now and just breathe. So love my Fijians. And this, I think, is one of my favorite sayings. In Fiji, dessert is good for your figure. And I was on my very first trip as a Tourism Fiji employee to Fiji, and I was at Tokariki Island Resort out in the Mamanuthas. If you know it, you love it. And I was having lunch with one of the most handsome Fijian men I'd ever set eyes on. And we had lunch, and he insisted I have their little ice cream dessert. So I had a couple bites. I'm not a big ice cream eater. And I pushed it away, and he looked at me and he said, Ruth, Mon, finish your dessert. It's good for your figure. And I thought about it, and I stopped and I said, excuse me, but I need to tweet that to a waiting world, because there's a lot of women out there who need to hear that. So anyway, one of my favorite Fijian sayings, and it just sort of sums it all up, right? Just go for it. So I'm going to wrap up here a little bit about our future, what's going on. Um, just want to remind you that one of the great things about Fiji is there's so much for so many people. We have 333 islands. We have resorts from, 6-star uber luxury. Harry and Meghan stayed with us, right down to some really cool, 2-star backpacker resorts up in the Asawas that I'd be delighted to stay at. But luxury, we're known for romance, honeymoons. I mean, who wouldn't want to be in the honeymoon beret up at the Asawa Island Resort with a quarter mile of private beach all to yourself, right? Adventure, and if I didn't mention it and you want to learn more about Fiji, some of Fiji's adventure activities, check out on Amazon Prime, Eco Challenge Fiji, which just came out in September of 2020, but it's a 7-part series of these crazy extreme athletes who race across VT Levu from the east to the west without sleeping for a lot of the times. But great way to see some of the really cool things like whitewater river rafting that you can do in Fiji that people had no idea you could do. So the next market we target, relaxers. That's me. I'm called a laid back Bula. Find me a hammock with a spa nearby and a good looking Fijian to bring me a glass of champagne every time my other one runs out. That's me. Lots of that. As I mentioned before, families, of course. And again, lots of opportunities, places like Vomo Island with some amazing luxury residences where a multi-gen family would have a superb experience. And then groups. So just a reminder that if you have any, affinity groups, be them diving, surfing, whatever, I put their girlfriend getaways, ideal place for ladies to travel, super safe, no security issues. Again, dessert is good for your figure. And we are, if any of you do any business events, if you have any of those clients, we do have a new MICE platform, which will be launching relatively soon, but it's also a great place for small meetings and incentives. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, you're going to start to see some ads from us for a new campaign we're going to be running over the next 3 months to keep Fiji top of mind with American consumers. It's called Find Your Bula. And we've got a whole bunch of really cute little ads that are a little bit cheeky and play on our year of stuck in our houses. And it all drives to this fun interactive quiz that you take, and you take the quiz, and at the end of it, you come back and you're identified as one sort of Bula traveler. So a lot of fun. On the back end, what it's helping us do is to identify and gather some audience pools for retargeting once the borders open and we can actually start selling tactically again. Also coming up, just stay tuned and say the next 3 months is our Matai Specialist Program is undergoing a revamp. So if you're already a Matai, do not panic. You will be, I think, just rolled over onto the new platform automatically, but you'll be updated on that. But if you're not a Matai yet, I encourage you to either sign up now just to get on the list and do the educational part of it later when the new courses come up. We're shooting for June, God willing. And that's it. So Vinaka Vakalevu to all of you for joining us today. I've got my email address there. I think Ren will certainly follow up in email as well. Below is just the Tourism Fiji website in case you'd like to go on there and have a look-see as well. But I hope you have found this interesting. I hope you have started thinking about maybe some of your clients for whom Fiji would be a great destination once we can welcome them back. And I'll hand it back to Ren. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have, but Vinaka Vakalevu, and I hope to see you in the islands in 2021.
Oh, Ruth, thank you so much. And yes, please, everyone, just put your questions through to us. But I just want to say thank you, Ruth. That was very insightful for me as someone who knows the region well, just to get those little pieces of information that are, why are the Fijian people the way they are? And it just explained that perfectly. And a couple of things that I picked up on that I really loved is the new campaign I saw the byline there, never on mute, and I think that'll really resonate with a lot of people moving forward. And I wanted to sort of touch on family travel and you're saying that this is an increased focus for you guys moving forward. And Fiji is always seen as a romantic destination from North America, and it is. It's very romantic.
Mm.
But coming from New Zealand and Australia, this is where you take your family. It's just what you do. And so having the nanny programs and kids club and all of that, Fiji is very well set up for multi-generational.
Absolutely. So if just in case someone doesn't know, generally at a family-friendly resort, obviously not at a honeymoon resort, but like I'm going to just say outstanding examples: Castaway Island, Jean-Michel Cousteau, Vomo Island. So babies, I think under like 2 years, they will get a one-on-one nanny and a lovely Fijian woman who comes to your bure in the morning and takes the baby away and brings it back whenever you want it. I don't mean to say it, but you know what I mean. From like 2 to 6, they get Bula buddies. So like maybe 2 kids to 1 Fijian. And these are just like young Fijians who honestly run around the resort with these kids all day. When the sun goes down, all of a sudden the kids all come out in their grass skirts and they run around and help light the torches and stuff. So it's completely interactive. And even for the older kids, for the teenagers, they have like programs that deal with marine biology and teach them how to plant coral. One thing as well, children as young as 10 can be certified to scuba dive in Fiji. So what a wonderful family vacation. Do all your book work here in America before you leave, go down and you guys could get certified to scuba together. I mean, talk about something that as a family you would share forever, you know.
Absolutely. And speaking of family, I think that extends beyond just children. It extends to the older members of the family too, because I have an example of my own parents who went to Fiji on their honeymoon many years ago.
Oh,
And the taxi driver that took them from the airport to their hotel picked them up and took them to his house for dinner, or every night of their stay. And so
yeah.
we got to meet the
Yeah.
family. And
I want to show you. I hope you can see this. This is a picture of my mother. God rest her soul. But we took Betty to Fiji for her 90th birthday. So we did a 3-night stay down at Natandola Beach, and then went out and did a 4-night cruise on Blue Lagoon Cruises through the Isawas. And I mean, not to get whatever, but at my mom's end, she first of all, she had a Fijian caretaker, which is a whole different subject. We could go on forever. But at the end, she was talking about going to heaven to see my dad in Fiji. And for her, for the last 3 years of her life, her Fiji was heaven. It was the same thing. So I got to tell you, if something impressed my 90-year-old stubborn as heck mother, but perfect for families. And yeah,
perfect.
I'll start crying if I think about it.
Oh, it is.
No, I'll just tell you, after she died, she wanted she sent her glasses and her hearing aids to Fiji. So I took them down to Fiji and gave them to a doctor that we had met when we were there. And just ironically, I ran into this doctor last year at a hotel at a Christmas party. And he said, no, my mother is wearing your mother's glasses. And we gave the hearing aids to a lady in the village. And I think if my mother knew that her eyes and her ears were in Fiji, she would be, delighted.
Oh, bless. I love that story. I love that. And I'm sure everyone who visits Fiji will leave with just as the same sorts of stories that we're talking about. Look, Ruth, I think you did such a good job that you covered everything and no one has any questions. So I think that's a good thing. And what we'll do is we'll put all of this in the follow-up, and I'll include your email so that they can get in contact with you as well. But Vinaka Levu,
Vinaka to everybody, and stay safe, stay sane. As you can see, I've got my collection of Fiji rum and vodka here. That's my stay sane compartment. But yeah, and God willing, that we could perhaps have Thanksgiving in Fiji this year. No promises, please, but soon we will be in the island sooner rather than later.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Nakan sa tatale.